Sea of Galilee, the Sea of Tiberias. Jesus has been in Capernaum a lot up until this point in time, still fairly early in his ministry. And after this, Jesus is going to make some return appearances to Capernaum. The village of Nahum is what this means. Last conversation I had with Brother Charles Wingo was about a trip he made years back to the Holy Land. And he talked about visiting Capernaum. There's still the ruins of a synagogue there. There is what is traditionally said to be the house of Peter. I don't know that I would put much stock in that. But this was his hometown, as a matter of fact. And so it was interesting to have Charles relate to the idea of walking where these folks walked, to visualizing what it might have been like nearly 2 millennia ago to see that. And so Jesus is there, and he's confronted with a problem there. This centurion, by the way, Roman centurions, soldiers, over 100 men, were the backbone of the Roman army. These were men that didn't just bark out orders, didn't just kind of sit elitely away from the rest of the soldiers. They were the ones that would go into battle with their men. These were men that basically had manifested great moral fiber, were thought of so highly, were very decorated for the position of honor and leadership that they were given there. But this man comes, Matthew has him coming directly to Jesus. Incidentally, if you look at Luke's account where that is said to be indirectly, sending messengers to Jesus, a lot of folks have looked at that and said, now wait, can you reconcile those two stories? Were they different ones with a lot of points of similarity, or is there a contradiction? Let me briefly address that. I think two things, maybe three, are possible. Number one, that the centurion has delegates, has ambassadors, if you will, go to Jesus. They're doing that on his behalf, and so they're talking to Jesus literally could be said to be from him. It'd be like an ambassador that we would send. We would say that our president was represented to a foreign country. He wasn't there in person, but the delegate, the ambassador, would represent him. That may be what's going on here. The other possibility is that at first the delegates go, and then the centurion decides, you know what, I want to talk to this man in person. And so this could be two stages of the story. So I think there's a way to reconcile the apparent disagreement between the two stories, but he comes with an urgent request. He is imploring, Matthew 8 verse 5 and Luke 7 verse 3, begging that Jesus would do something about a servant. Let's talk about that servant and his infirmity there. By the way, in his coming either directly or indirectly to Jesus, he's not demanding. He's not barking orders. He's not issuing not just a demand of Jesus, but a request. It is couched in words of respect. It might have been kind of interesting for a person that we would think of in that society or today. It had reached a level of honor himself. But I've got a servant who is infirm. This is not my illness. Talks about a palsy, the older versions, paralysis. It indicates that he was dreadfully tormented. This was a guy in a lot of pain, and yet it was a who? Not the centurion, not the family member of the centurion, but a servant. I think it's a mark of interest that this man showed such attention. This man that was, in the words of the Bible, very dear to him, that he would take notice of a person like that. A lot of leaders in that society and today could have said, you know what, these servants are a dime a dozen. If he dies, I can replace him. It's no big deal. Just a servant. Included this great notation. This was on behalf of troubling the Son of God, God in the flesh, with a sick servant there. A great malady. It's not a hangnail. It's not a mild headache. It's a serious matter there, but he's going to the one, not the doctors, although he might have seen them before, going to the ultimate physician there, the great physician. Appreciate the fact that he knew something about Jesus that others were just beginning to piece together. Jesus had already performed miracles, by the way, in Capernaum. Maybe that's how this centurion God win of that? We're not sure about that. Let me tell you more about the character of the centurion. I'm going to mention a word there. It seems strange, but it's an inferiority, our next I. Inferiority. He didn't have a complex. He didn't have a low self-worth, but compared to Jesus, interesting that he said, Jesus, I'm appealing to your authority. I am also a man of authority and under authority. In other words, there are people below me, but I answer to people above me. But we share some similarities, Jesus. You have authority, I have authority. Yours is greater. I'm not pretending that I am an equal to you. I am definitely not saying that I'm above you, looking down at you, demanding certain things. No, there is an honor in the request there, an inferiority of saying, Jesus, you know what, I say to this one servant, go, and he goes, and another, come, and he comes. I say to one, do this, he does it. These guys do it unquestioningly. Jesus, I'm asking you, I am begging you to do something because I understand who you are. Important that not only Jesus understand that, but others, the ambassadors that were sent, maybe others in that household, maybe some of the neighbors there in Capernaum would know what he's saying about Jesus Christ. You know what the Jews did? The delegates that were sent by the centurion, a Roman, a Gentile, by the way, when they come to Jesus, they are all about this guy. There is such a regard and a respect that they mutter about him. You know what he's done, Jesus? We think it's worth your time. This man loves our nation. He loves us Jews. That's not customary. We don't love him in return, but he loves us. And this centurion has built a synagogue for us. You know what that may indicate? That he is not just sympathetic to these people, very different in his belief system, but maybe that he is what was technically a God-fearer. He is a proselyte, either a full convert to Judaism or at least one that is kind of halfway in between. He respects the Jewish religion. That means he knows something about God. And so this man is in this position. By the way, a lot of centurions in Scripture praised, had a spiritual dimension to their lives that'd be a little surprising for most Roman captains, military leaders. But his inferiority is amazing here. You know what he says to Jesus? I am not worthy that you should come under my roof. Wow. I'm not worthy. That may be a nod to his understanding that in the Mishnah, not the Bible, not the Old Testament, but kind of a common interpretation or tradition that Jews didn't go into Gentile dwellings. That would kind of violated this idea. And so he's not saying, you know what, we as a class are lower than you Jews, but he says, I know that that's not something that you maybe could comfortably do. That might get you in trouble with others. And so I'm not even asking that. I'm not demanding that at all. Jesus, I want you to say a word. All you have to do is utter the word. You don't have to be inside my house for this servant to get better. That was the measure of his faith about Jesus. Incidentally, there were other times in the Bible. I don't know if he knew of those or if they had happened at this point, in where Jesus healed remotely. He didn't have to be there touching a person, didn't have to be there handling them and talking in their direct presence. The centurion's faith was such, and his respect for the Son of God. I don't want you to even have to come under my roof. Don't come into the house. Say the word, and this servant, dear to me, dreadfully tormented, paralyzed, will get better. That's marvelous. That's amazing, isn't it? And then you see the final line there, the improvement. And I'm not using improving, that he was marginally better, that he slowly came around and over a period of weeks or months and some rehabilitation got back to normal. No, it's an immediate improvement there. But Jesus, while giving this wonderful relief to the servant, who, by the way, as I'm sure was having the story relayed to him, you'll never believe what happened. You'll never believe who did it. Imagine some of his friends or fellow servants saying, that centurion, he's really devoted to you, isn't he? Sure. You know what he did? He sent to Jesus and had him speak a word to make you well. Totally over your paralysis. You're no longer dreadfully tormented. That'd be interesting to hear that in hindsight. Imagine these guys embracing, hugging over the wonderful restoration of his health. Imagine the respect he had already for this man that he was discharged with serving. How easy would it be for you as that servant to look up to this man, to want to do your best in honor of him and in appreciation for his kindness to you there, his improvement. When Jesus, understanding and knowing what's going on behind the scenes already, when he knows about this man, he says something just striking. I have not found such great faith, not even in Israel. Such great faith. Back in the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 6, Jesus, in talking about desire for material things, keeping body and soul together, Jesus says, you know what, I don't want you worried, I don't want you anxious about securing food, clothing, and shelter. He says you need to do that, but don't worry about it. Don't be consumed with it. Oh, you of little faith. Little faith. If you look up the word faith in the New Testament and you look at the modifiers, many times Jesus chides, rebukes, often the apostles, sometimes if not them, his disciples. You are not manifesting faith. You're out in the stormy sea that we sang about a moment ago, and oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt? Why do you think the storm's going to swallow you up? I'm on board here. Peter, on a different occasion, walking out to Jesus on the water, sees the wind boisterous and the waves picking up and begins to sing. Jesus says, you of little faith. Hardness of the hearts of the apostles when they don't know what Jesus is talking about in bringing bread. Little faith, over and over and over, and rarely do you find, as in here, a reference to great faith. Syrophoenician woman, not a Jew, comes to Jesus for healing for her daughter. Jesus commended her faith. Held that as an example, even among the Jews. Jesus says, I haven't seen this type of faith in me among the people you would expect it to be from. And you know what? Jesus went on from there. Matthew's account has it. Let me tell you something. Let me give you an insight into what's going to happen. There are many among the Gentiles, like this centurion, he might have thought, that are coming from the east and west, sitting at the table where Abraham and Isaac and Jacob are, partaking of the same benefits spiritually, eternally, that they will. And what he's saying is, that's what I'm here about. It's great to have someone go from sick to well, but let me look at the higher meaning for you, and that is a spiritual cleansing. The idea of people of all backgrounds, all different nationalities, races, if you will, having the same blessed participation in the benefits of Jesus and his kingdom. Isn't that great? Such great faith. Jesus praised it in these people. I want him to look at me and you and say, that's great faith. That's marvelous. It's not a risk. It's not believing in spite of evidence. It is knowing that if Jesus is behind it, it will happen. He is ultimately powerful to accomplish everything that he's ever promised. I want to be a person of great faith, and I want to realize just a couple of random thoughts in closing here. The centurion made reference to his servants. I say to this one, go, he goes, another come and do this, and they do it. Can't we obey Jesus more than, or to the degree that we would obey a superior, a boss, teacher, an employer? If I understand that that's the way things work, there's an orderly arrangement to society and a submission, how much more to the Son of God? I ought to be doing everything that he asked me to, and I ought to be getting the manual out to make sure I know what that is, and saying, Lord, based upon your high superiority, I am willingly putting myself in obedience to you. And there's another connection here I want us to think about as we close, and that is that Jesus didn't have to be in the house for this man to be healed. He did it remotely. Some of us wish Jesus were a lot closer. I know that he's close. Acts 17, in God, we live and move and have our being. Oh, he is so close, although he's not seen by our naked eyes, our visible eyes. But while he is in heaven, in a sense, and we here on earth, he is close. There's no distance gap. There's not a problem of again, separation for God to take care of anything and everything that I need in my life right now. And there will come a time, contingent upon my obedience and my walking in the light, when I'll sit around that banquet table and I'll be at the feet of sweet Jesus and be able to express to him my love and appreciation for what he's done. When he spoke those words that were so just riveting to this centurion and the servant, go your way. Your faith has made him well. What a great principle that is. Jesus gave marching orders to the apostles. We have them on the back wall there. I want you to go in all the world, preach the gospel to all creation, every creature, with the condition that he who believes and is baptized will be saved. The one who doesn't believe will be condemned. Saved. How do I get to be saved? That word is an interesting word. It can be physical salvation, as in the healing, usually in its context means a spiritual cleansing. I want to be saved. I want to be cleansed. I want to be whole and healthy in my soul. Jesus says, I've got the RX. I'm writing you out a prescription. If you will have this filled, if you believe, and at the point of your baptism, understand that's where the cleansing takes place, contingent on confession, obviously, and your repentance. And if you'll maintain that faithful walk with me throughout your life, it'll be a smooth landing. You'll be where you want to be. You'll know that whatever it costs for you to do that will have been a bargain. It will be worth it. Today, do you have great faith? Do you have a great faith like this man to know that Jesus, anything that he is able to do, he is willing to do, and he will do it on his terms? If you need to come to him for obedience, for salvation, for cleansing, he's there. He's ready. He loves you. You need to come back to him. If something's wrong in your life, if prayers are needed for strength in some way, let that be known too. While together we stand and sing for your encouragement.